There's none to be worshipped but God. My daughter Sarah the other day, my middle daughter, she's 7, and she is a cutie pie. As God wills, of course. She asked me, Daddy, what does worship mean? She said, I went to a Quran class all summer long and they told me I shouldn't worship this, I shouldn't worship that, I should only worship God. Nobody told me what worship means. I told her worship, Sarah, is when you make something the most important thing in your life. So, if it's another man, you worship that man. If that's the most important thing in your existence, you center your life on that. That's your object of worship. If it's money, she said, money? You could worship money? I said, yes. Because you make it the most important thing of your life. You'll do anything to get it. Step on people, cheat people, hurt people. You don't care how much damage you do. You want to get that money. You're worshiping money. That's the center of your life. Quran tells us that there is none and nothing to be worshipped but Allah. That terse formula, La ilaha illallah. There is none to be worshipped. There is no worship except the worship due to Allah. It implies that the many different objects of worship that we as mankind choose, it implies that the various objects of worship that we choose besides God Almighty have no real authority or power, and that the divisions and hatreds that their misdirected venerations lead to are totally unnecessary and a result of nothing more than evil, self-destructive, man-made illusions. So that, when an example I showed my daughter, the man who pursues wealth above all else, his entire focus in life is getting that money, and he hurts others to do it, stomps on others to do it, cheats this one, robs this one. He's living an illusion, because that'll never bring him happiness. It'll never bring him inner peace. It'll make him a slave to every dollar, scared to death to lose it, and worst of all, when he goes on to the next life, when the only thing he'll bring with him that has any worth at all are his spiritual, moral, and ethical achievements, the goodness that he grew in. When he's bankrupt in that, and his pockets on earth were filled with money, he will see the terrible, terrible loss of that illusion that he lived. And that's one of the messages of the Quran, that there is none to be worshipped but Allah, and when we worship any others, we destroy ourselves, we destroy others, we separate ourselves from others, our object of worship becomes something we cling to, and we keep others away from us. We separate ourselves into different groups. We hurt people that don't agree with our object of worship, or we feel are in the way of our object of worship. It becomes a disintegrating, demoralizing, harmful factor in the human race. But the phrase, La ilaha illallah, of course, means that there is but one spiritual and moral standard governing humanity, and one measure of a person's worth. As the Quran so poignantly says, O mankind, lo, we have created you male and female, and have made you nations and tribes. Why? So that you may come to know one another. So that you may come to know one another. Lo, the noblest among you in the sight of Allah is the one who is foremost and foremost in goodness. A single moral standard applying to all humanity. And that we relate, the Quran tells us, God made us male and female and nations and tribes. Why? So we could come to know each other and interact with each other. And what type of interaction makes us the foremost, the best in the sight of God? And achieve the most peace and serenity in this life, and the greatest reward in the hereafter? Our level of goodness and our relationships with others, and our commitment to our worship of God Almighty. Most important of all, La ilaha illallah implies that the barriers we set up between ourselves and others are nothing more than fallacies. Because we all must answer to the same supreme almighty authority, God Almighty. In 7th century Arabia, each tribe, as you all know, had its own deity from which it sought protection, favoritism, permission, solicitation, in the perpetual intertribal strife. Every tribe felt self-justified, right? This tribe said, appealed to its deity, let me do this, let me crush these people over here, let me steal from this tribe over there, go and pray to it. This one went to his deity, and they were using their gods and their objects of worship to support this perpetual intertribal strife that was tearing the Arabian Peninsula apart, and that had kept it completely disintegrated. But it took Islam's monotheism to unite the warring factions, as the Quran so poignantly points out. It said, and hold fast, all of you together, to the rope of Allah, and do not separate. And remember Allah's favor unto you, how you were enemies, and He made friendship between your hearts, so that you became as brothers by His grace, and how you were on the brink of an abyss of fire, and He did save you from it. You know, when Malcolm X made the pilgrimage, he was really, at that time in his life, even he'll tell you, it was the first time he really understood Islam. And he made the Shahada all over again and committed himself anew to the religion that he felt he had never really understood up until that moment. And when he speaks about Tawheed and the phrase La ilaha illallah, he says that he came to realize that that implies two things: the oneness of God and the unity and equality of all mankind. And that's just what we're talking about right now. La ilaha illallah has two components. First and foremost, there is only one God. And from that, it's natural corollary that we are all, in essence, equal in humanity. Just because we are Muslims, we have no right to take advantage of non-Muslims. Just because we are Muslims and we feel we're on the right path, that gives us no right to cheat others. Our fellow human beings tomorrow could submit themselves to God and be much better than we are. We have no right to wish them ill unless they attack us. We have no right to cheat them. We have no right to be foul to them. We have no right, the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, to even use foul language to them. Because we are all sons of Adam. We are all children of Adam, and we are all essentially equal, potentially spiritually equal in Allah's sight, in the sight of God.